let's imagine we are going for a walk at the beach, and it's a nice sunny day, and we hear the seagulls, and yeah, it's ocean.
The music you're listening to right now was recorded at a live event here in Los Angeles this past October. The artist performing and the instrument used are the subject of today's episode, but we'll get to that in just a few moments. First, I'd like to extend the following message. Under normal circumstances, Raz and I would have a musical guest seated on our eponymous couch, and the lot of us would talk about the musician's biography, philosophy, and approach to songcraft. These are, however, not normal times. Project 4 Studios, the location in which we here at ArtSchool Records typically record our podcast, is, for the foreseeable future, closed due to the international health crisis that has us all at our homes, sheltering in place, as it were. How long this crisis continues and what lasting effects it has on our society is anyone's guess. From the perspective of this podcaster, there has already been a marked change in the two realms regularly trod by ArtSchool Records, those of music and of podcasting. Some reports are estimating an 80% decrease across the board in podcast listener traffic, attributed predominantly to a lack of listeners tuning in on the commutes which no longer happen. In the world of music, beyond the postponing of all the spring's major festival events and the outright cancellation of most smaller concerts, the most relevant development has been a reinvention, or perhaps better put, relocation of nearly all live musical performance. Artists of all styles and statures, everyone from your local bar band to Diplo, have taken to broadcasting, from home studios or living rooms, their own special Corona concerts. Spread across the internet on a variety of platforms, the live-streamed concert has rapidly established itself as an emblematic token of the era. As we get deeper into these quarantine times, it will become interesting to see how the concert on a computer grows and develops an identity apart from its counterpart with crowds. If events in the world continue to keep us apart from one another, it may well be events in cyberspace that prove a saving grace for the careers of many musicians. As for podcasts, well, we're going to continue to produce them. And hey, you're listening to one, so that's got to count for something. So in that vein, let's continue, shall we? Hey, Raz. How you doing? You still living on bourbon and breath mints?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all right, man, Not living off bourbon and breath mints anymore,
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Well, yeah, I kind of moved on to scotch and Tic Tacs.
That's unbelievable.
It truly is. It truly is. How about you, man? How you guys holding up?
Me and Aub and jelly are all good. We're better than good, actually, because we've been trying to implement all this advice from the world's greatest thereminist.
Whoa, that's nuts, man. What do you talk to the what do you talk about to the world's greatest therapist? Like how do I know I'm really happy? Do I exist?
No, no. Thereminist, as in somebody who plays the theremin.
Oh yeah, man. I know the theremin. Good Vibrations was a huge hit back in my day. But for our listeners who might not know, how would you describe it?
Well, Raz, I'm glad you asked. And to get that answered, we should check in with the keeper of all that is old school and cool, my better half. It's Aubrey Iwamoto. Hey, Aub.
Hey, Bill. Hey, Raz.
What up, Obs? I was just asking your lovely husband here to explain to our listeners at home about what exactly a theremin and a thereminist are. And he said we should talk to you.
Oh, yeah, the theremin. It's one of the coolest instruments and one of the first electronic instruments. It's the instrument you play without touching.
What? You're going to have to tell us a little more about this.
Well, there have been electronic instruments since the very early years of the 20th century, but the theremin was the first to really have a wide appreciation in the public. So during the years between world wars, a number of governments around the world were funding different types of research to help rebuild and fortify their nations from the global tragedy that was the First World War and other events like it. In the Soviet Union, a physicist who was studying proximity sensors found a way in which radio waves could be used to manipulate sound-generating circuitry. The device which this discovery ultimately produced was named for its inventor, Leon Theremin. And this year, 2020, is actually the centennial anniversary of its invention.
So, radio waves, like sound going out. Please, tell us, how does that work?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, Leon Theremin was working on proximity or nearness sensors. The radio waves are not sent out to broadcast a show or something like we typically think of radio waves, but rather to be bounced back or read more like a radar. The instrument, which is most often shaped as an oblong wooden box, has a pair of antennas protruding from it, one off from either end. One of them reads interference in the radio waves emitted and uses that interference to affect the frequency or pitch of a generated sound. The other antenna has a similar effect, but on the amplitude or volume.
Well, that sounds pretty sci-fi. I mean, you don't see a lot of like modern bands or like pop bands using something like that on stage.
Yeah, I mean, there is an audience for it, primarily in the art music world. The community is, it's like Spinal Tap's fan base. It's selective. In the way that most niches are, this one is represented by a single person.
That's right. And that person is German performer Carolina Eyck. During a stop on her last tour, she held a performance in support of the release of her latest album, 2019's Elegies for Theremin and Voice. Bill and I were lucky enough to get a chance to sit down with her for a few minutes.
Albeit not on the green couch.
Right. We spoke to her at Civic Center Studios in downtown Los Angeles just ahead of her sound check there for that evening's performance.
Right. But guys, before we get into that, though, I just have to take us on a slight, severe detour. Raz, do you know the story of the first triumvirate?
I do not.
Well, let me take you in the Wayback Machine to the end of the Republican period in ancient Rome.
Okay, I'm going to take 5.
Sorry, love. All right. Hear me out. So, at the end of the Republic, prior to the foundation of Rome's imperial system, the system here in the land was really jacked up. 3 dudes were basically running the show, each sort of in charge of a different dimension of the society, so that if, like, they all agreed on a decision, they could force it through, and alternately, like, if one of them was getting uppity or out of control, the other twos were there to put him in check. The 3 in question were Pompey, and he was, like, the greatest general in the country, Julius Caesar, who's, like, the greatest politician, and this guy Crassus, who is the richest dude. The reason I'm telling you about all this moldy stuff is because it's basically just to talk about this guy Crassus. He was such, like, a proto 1%er. He was reputed to have said that you, quote, you can't really call yourself rich until you can afford your own army.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, he was a real piece of work. If there was ever a fire in the city, he would go down and see the homeowners freaking out and panicking and offer to buy their houses off of them for cents on the dollar, like dirt cheap. And people would just take the deal so that they would have a little bit of money, just so that they wouldn't lose everything in the fire. And once the deal was done, out of nowhere, he brings in the private fire brigade that he employed, put the fire out, save the home, and then fucking charge the people rent.
Oh,
I know.
You got to be kidding me. Yeah,
It's
you gotta
sad,
be
but
kidding me,
it's... I tell you all this because I think right now we've got a situations on our hand with the virus outbreak where there are people unaffected by the current plight who actually stand to benefit from it, like even perhaps consolidate power or form monopolies, like in the midst of all of it.
So the fire is coronavirus?
Hey, welcome back, Aubrey. That was 5
Hi.
minutes. No, I think we're the renters.
The house is society, and Crassus is Jeff Bezos.
Damn, that's pretty cynical, Bill.
I know. I know. I'm sorry, but maybe it's not even wholly true, but I think it's simply worth us making certain that we think about how society is being altered in the midst of this, like, crisis situation. An eye on the future is all I'm asking for, and we might be, turning some of these already very wildly powerful people into societal forces like some sort of giant corporate Godzilla thing.
Okay.
All right. But Bill,
Yes,
you know
Russ?
who's not? You know who's not a corporate Godzilla thing?
Who's
Patchwork Cables.
Ah.
Patchwork Cables. All right. Let me tell you. Patchwork Cables is an LA-based instrument cable company that specializes in pro-quality instrument cables as well as microphone and patch cables. Their braided cables are made with Mogami cables and Nutric plugs. Each cable is handmade and tested before heading out to you. Both Bill and I use Patchwork cables. We do. I love them. And if I were to stretch these substantial cords out from his place in Echo Park to Project 4 Studios in Burbank, we might just be able to reach one another. But we won't do that because, of course, social distancing. But if we could, we would be able to do this without losing any fidelity in the signal, because these, my friends, dear listeners, are high quality cables. So we would like to thank Patchwork Cables for sponsoring this episode. We'd like to thank them for being an honest and quality company, not a corporate Godzilla thing. And Patchwork Cables, in return, would like to thank you. That's right. Patchwork Cables is offering On the Green Couch listeners a special discount. Go to patchworkcables.com and enter the code GREENCOUCH, that's all one word, Green Couch, all one word, at the checkout to receive 10% off your next purchase. That's Patchwork Cables, LA's #1 choice for high quality musical instrument cables.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously, I love these cables. But anyways.
All right, and now back to the show.
All right, So, what did you guys talk to the thereminist about?
Thereminist.
The thermos.
Oh, thereminist. Oh, thank you. All right. How about this? All right. There's that page getting crumpled. All right. So, what did you guys talk to the thereminist about?
Well, the first thing we wanted to find out is how someone becomes acquainted with such an obscure instrument like this. This is what Carolina shared with us about that. So you've been playing theremin since you were 7.
Yeah.
So what, and I read that your parents introduced it to you. So that's a really unusual instrument. What was it about, what was your parents' connection to the theremin that they would introduce it to you so young?
My parents were playing electronic music. So my dad and his colleague, they had a band. And my mom did the light show for their concerts. So electronic music was in our family. And basically they bought the theremin because they thought, well, that would be nice to have in their band. Mm-hmm. And then they realized, well, I've got some nice basic compliment. They thought it would be nice to have the theremin in their band. And then they realized, well, you need to practice a bit to be able to play the instrument. Mm-hmm. So, one day it was sitting there in the living room and it was, meant to be for me.
So did you just start playing with it, like, because it was there? Or were they like, all right, you're going to learn how to play this?
I already had started playing piano and violin, and that was just a third instrument to start playing. And as a kid, I didn't really question it, so I just started playing it, and I got lessons from Lydia Kavina when I was very young. So, that's how it started.
So, did I hear that she's been playing since the age of 7?
Yeah. Yes, sir. I know it's quite a long time on such a, shall we say, specific instrument.
Yeah. No, I guess you don't become the de facto face of the study without some dedication, right?
Yes, dedication, but she also helped to solidify her place in the specific world with the development of a particular technique for playing the theremin and publishing a book on it in 2006.
Okay, so I, had music lessons in different, different subjects. So I studied violin, I played piano, and then you have in school, you have hearing lessons. And I also, took composition classes. But the only thing I couldn't study was theremin. So everything I did kind of helped me in my theremin playing, of course. Because, when you learn music, it's about music, it's not just about the instrument, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, but then, about the playing technique, that came to me when I was about 16. I felt the need to be better on my instrument. I wanted to be more precise with my pitches. And that's when I came up with a certain playing technique, which involves 8 finger positions, and you have very defined positions for each note in a scale. And from that point on, I felt that I got better with my intonation, and it helped me a lot to grow on the theremin as well.
You have more control over what notes you're hitting instead of just trying to find it. Mm-hmm. So it sounds a lot more clean and crisp than earlier or other recordings of theremin players.
My goal was that I could know which note I was going to hear before I even heard it.
Right.
So I wanted to be able to find my note just by muscle memory, other than just listening for it and then searching for it.
Right, so it'd be more like other instruments, like the piano.
Exactly.
You know what you're going to get.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, well, that's pretty cool. It's really fascinating to think that even despite all of these endless amounts of music that's out there with people playing it, that there are still developments to be made,
And music to be made.
Right. And on that note, let's give our listeners who might not be familiar with Carolina's work an opportunity to hear what all of these concepts translate to musically. This is a selection from her performance the evening we taped the interview that night. This is a selection from her performance entitled Remembrance.
Well, that was a really cool performance. I guess with all this talk about the theremin, I hadn't really thought about, what it sounded like with this specific performer. I didn't expect all the singing.
Yeah. I personally love a song with no words. During our interview, actually, we had a chance to discuss her singing and lyrics as well. You tend not to sing lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Is that so much of your work seems like a very deliberate decision. I assume that is as well.
I started to take singing lessons when I was a teenager, and I just very quickly tensed my voice, and I couldn't sing a song through without hurting my voice, because I had to sing what was on the paper, and I was very just tense in my voice. And the only way I could be free and I wouldn't have any pain was when I just sang what came to my mind in that moment without singing any specific lyrics. So I just kept doing that, and I see my voice as more as an instrument, and sometimes I copy the theremin and people say I sing like a theremin sounds, or the other way around, right? So I just do what feels most natural to me.
And also, it's important to remember that during the song we listened to earlier, there's only a single person up on the stage doing all of this, singing, playing the theremin, and operating a few pieces of electronic equipment with her feet.
Yeah, like she's some sort of musical cyborg octopus.
Okay, that's actually pretty cool. I mean, I'm sure Netflix is going to pick that up because they need content, but there's something that's been bugging me. Right. I got to get back to this thing where you said that at the beginning was this talk of, you said she gave you some good advice. So what was that?
Well, in part, she said this.
I see the theremin as a tool for myself to develop as a human being. And when I talk to other people about the theremin, I just like to maybe give somebody else the chance to maybe find the theremin also for them to be a tool, right? Mm-hmm. That anything can be a tool for us to grow and to be more mindful in life. So that's what was the TED Talk about.
In this part of the discussion, we were alluding to a TED Talk she had done about how really any practice, musical or otherwise, is a conduit by which to become more mindful of your body, and through that mindfulness to become more self-aware and better people. We need only take the time to allow ourselves to be aware and pay attention.
And I'm sure that paying attention to your body likely doesn't hurt in helping you to play the theremin.
And yes, there's that too.
Okay, all right. Look, so I'm curious, all right? Do you guys see her as more of a musician or more like a mindfulness person?
Can it be both?
Okay, fair point.
I think the takeaway is that Carolina has this like interweaving of her voice and body, the natural elements with the electronic theremin and her pedals and whoosies, what's-its, and devices on stage. It's all a balancing act. It's about reaching like a happy place somewhere between the person and the machine, and the balancing act is going to be aided in no small part by knowing where your body begins and ends and the capabilities and the restrictions that it has.
As far as, collaborations with people and machines, as far as that goes, this is likely going to be the case for the foreseeable future. As we all get our music and pretty much all of our interactions with other humans through like digital intermediations, right?
Yeah, and that might be kind of isolating, but trying to remain self-aware, aka mindful, it can be made a bit easier.
Well put, Obs. That was a good point. No, it was a good point.
You kind of like this phone call. On the Green Couch is a production of ArtSchool Records